And this one is a competitive card game where players are going to be playing over a series of eras, innovating their own personal tableau as they try to dominate as many eras as possible. And the way that the game's set up is that you're going to have a bunch of numbered decks in a circle out in the middle of the table, with each of those decks representing one of the 10 eras. In the middle of these decks, you're also going to have a equal number of cards so that each era has one card associated with it, and whichever player is able to dominate each of those areas is going to be taking that associated card. At the beginning of the game, each player is going to be drawing 2 cards from the first era, choosing one to keep in their hand, and then one to put down into their tableau in front of them. But something that's interesting about playing these cards is that they do come in 5 different colors, and each color is going to be creating its own stack. This means that you can only have 5 different stacks in front of you, and if you go to play a card of a color that you've already played before, it's going to be going on top of the cards of the same color into that specific stack. The topmost cards on each of these stacks are known as the active cards, but that doesn't mean that the cards underneath them aren't useful, because some of the abilities of these cards could be amplified or even augmented by the cards that you have below them. The game plays over a series of turns, with each player getting 2 actions on their turn. Some of the actions available to you are to draw a new card from one of the Ages deck, but one thing to note here is that each of your active cards are actually going to have a value on them, and you can only draw from the age that matches the highest value on your active cards. So for example, in this image here, they only have a 3, so that would be their highest value, which means that if they go to draw a card, they have to draw it from the 3rd Age deck. Another action you can perform is to just play one of the cards into your hand, into your tableau, adding it into the appropriate stack or creating a new stack if you haven't started it already. And then you can use another action to activate the effects of one of your active cards. This can help you in all sorts of different ways, but the main thing that you're trying to do here is to gain influence. The reason you want to do that is because influence is the way that you're going to be dominating these different eras. In order to dominate an era, you need to have 5 times as much influence as the era that you're trying to dominate. This means that the first era only costs 5, second era is going to cost 10, the third era is going to cost 15, so on and so forth. And dominating one of the eras is the final action available to you if you do have enough influence. Dominating these different eras is a bit of a race because each era can only be dominated once, and whoever does that is going to be taking the appropriate card from the center of the table. And also getting a certain number of dominations is the way that you win the game, so you're trying to be the first player to get that specific number of dominations. But one thing to note here is that the eras aren't the only thing that you're able to dominate, because there are also domain cards. And just like the different eras, there's going to be a bunch of domain cards put out at the start of the game, but the thing that makes these different from dominating the eras is that instead of trying to get a certain amount of influence, instead, you're trying to complete specific objectives. Whoever's able to complete one of those objectives first is going to be acquiring that specific domain card, adding that to their total dominations. I really like this addition to the game because it gives players a bit of flexibility when deciding which cards that they want to go for. The Ultimate Edition is going to be coming with some significant improvements over the original game. The core gameplay is still going to be very much the same, but they did streamline a lot of the rules, especially for the expansions. They've also improved a little bit of the presentation of the different cards. It's also going to be including all the previous expansions and also a brand new one. Definitely looks like a lot of fun and one that I'm really interested in. I've heard a lot of good things about this game, and just looking into it myself, sounds like a game I would love, so if you think you would like it as well, you can check it out, and I do have links in the description below.